Sure, we are live, Divya. We can get started.
Hello, everyone, and I hope you all are having a fantastic time at Chaos Carnival 2022. So I'm Divya Mohan, and as a CNCF ambassador, I'm the co-chair for documentation on the Litmus Chaos as well as the Kubernetes projects. I have had like an extremely insane amount of good fortune to be having this ringside view of developments in the chaos engineering space. So as someone who's also actually from the production support and system administration background, I've had a particular vested interest in chaos engineering as a discipline. But today is not really about me, and it's about chaos engineering in general. And I believe we have fantastic panel along with us to learn from and share in on their wisdom. So without further ado, let's just get started with their introductions in an alphabetical order so as to avoid any further chaos. So, Dishant, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Divya.
Yep.
Really excited to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Dushyant from Nagaro. I'm the global practice head for our horizontal tech market segment that focuses on providing engineering solutions to SaaS and product organizations across the globe. For us, resilience and reliability has been a key topic, and we've been finding ways to help our customers elevate their product experience for the products that their end users are using. And that's where we incubated chaos engineering at Nagaro. And ever since that, we've been helping our customers start their chaos journey and just help them systematically practice chaos at scale. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. Next up, I believe we have Katie on the line. So, Katie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Divya. Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Gamanji, and I am a cloud native leader, practitioner, and contributor. In the past, I have built platforms for containerized applications, advised the startup, and led the CNCF end user community. However, today I am in the capacity of the Chief of Future Founders for OpenUK. However, in my day-to-day job as well, I am working as a Kubernetes field engineer for Apple as well. Quite excited to be here today and explore the chaos landscape.
We're excited to have you here, Katie. Next up, I believe, is Laura. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Hi there.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Laura, and I'm currently studying for a master degree in computer science in Germany. And I made first contact with the cloud native world and chaos engineering during a project in my bachelor, in my dual study program bachelor. And since then, I've been a member of Litmus Chaos community, and I've also contributed to this wonderful project. And apart from that, in my bachelor thesis, I investigated into geo-redundancy and multi-cluster Kubernetes, also a very interesting field. So thank you for having me, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Laura, for that wonderful introduction. Next up, I believe we have Mahesh Venkatraman. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. So, Mahesh Venkatraman from Accenture. I head the cloud quality engineering practice in Accenture. We are focused, primarily quality engineering of cloud is more focused on cloud architecture, quality, architecture, reliability, resilience, and security, business performance. So very much deep into chaos engineering, which essentially discovers the cloud architecture issues that can come in the way of cloud performance, reliability, resilience, availability, and security. Very excited to be here today and with so many people in the audience. Looking forward to this panel discussion. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. And last but not the least, Manivan and Chandrasekharan, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Divya. My name is Manivanan Chandrasekharan. I'm the SRE engineering manager for HelloDoc. As you all know, HelloDoc is a healthcare platform. So since we are into healthcare space, so we wanted to make sure our system is much reliable and stable. So we started investing our time getting into this kiosk engineering space in 2021, the beginning of the year. I think we were in the journey for quite some time. We had invested a lot of time setting up a lot of tech stacks into our organization. At that point of time, we decided to have kiosk tool. We identified list of tools and we tried to implement that in our organization with several best practices. I think thanks for having me here. I'm very excited to discuss a lot of things about kiosk engineering and kiosk tools in this forum. Thank you.
That's it for our panel introductions as of today. And diving straight in, because I know a lot of people are here and are excited to get started. I actually am very curious about this myself, to be honest. When I got started off with my chaos journey, and I was learning a lot of stuff about chaos engineering in general. A lot of my misunderstanding or lack of understanding stem from the fact that tend I tended to liken it to the existing practice of say DR testing or testing outages on the systems. So uh I just wanted to understand, is that still something of a misconception that people have when they start off on their journey, irrespective of whether it's an enterprise or a person? Is it something that people still grapple with as a challenge, or are we past that phase wherein everybody's now aware of chaos engineering being a discipline and not just a rebranding exercise? Anyone can take the stage. Dishant, Katie,
Yeah,
Laura, any
maybe
one
I
of you.
can start with that. So it's definitely not a rebranding exercise. Chaos engineering has far too many benefits for that, and it from uh, from just being a buzzword, which was more popularized by Netflix, I would say it's gone far beyond that. And the benefits that folks are seeing are specifically around understanding how recovery is happening, right? And just the key metrics around the mean time to repair or finding issues which are typically not known, and being able to discover some of those things which folks generally tend to miss out, right? And even the people aspects of it. So there is a lot more that chaos brings to the table than just what a DR test might be done. And besides that, people just practice DR testing like once in 6 months, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, add to Dishant, I think the way Kias started 5 years back, it was totally different. And we had got a lot of tools like Kias Monkey and Monkey Ops, which are very specific to, OpenShift and very specific to Kubernetes. And at that point of time, it was more of, the tool is very specific to language. And there were a lot of barriers. I think I mean, as Dishant rightly mentioned, it's not a rebranding. It is more of a kind of a technology invention where a lot of new things have come in, and now the way we are driving our kiosk experiments through different approach is completely changed, and it is made our life easier to execute our experiment, inject our experiment into our system to make sure how reliable and how resilient our systems are, maybe the workloads that we are targeting. So that was drastically changed is what I feel.
Yeah, so I
I
would
could
like to add on to that. See, what we find is that most of the outages are primarily because of architecture reasons and very less to do with obviously functionality. And one of the reasons of why we see outages in not only cloud and on-prem and all kinds of distributed complex systems, and cloud is definitely one distributed complex system, is developers and architects, they have to take design decisions under uncertainty. Design decisions of the choice of components, choice of design parameters, for example, timeouts, caching strategy, then the configuration. So all these factors interplay together to make runtime behavior very unpredictable. So while we do static analysis of architecture and static design reviews, it's important for us to understand what are the consequences of these design choices at runtime, right? Chaos engineering can be defined narrowly as try to break the system and see where it breaks, keep giving faults and see where it breaks. Or you could broad base it as continuous discovery of architecture behavior, something like a runtime architecture evaluation on a continuous basis, discovering behavior patterns that are not resilient, discovering behavior patterns that are not available oriented, discovering patterns which are not performance oriented or security oriented, and continuously improving using experimentation. So it's important for all of us to understand that chaos engineering is not blind breaking of the system and seeing what happens. It is thoughtful. For example, we are recommending failure mode analysis. Based on that, we provide certain stimulus, right? And then observability. So it's actually a runtime architecture behavior mining, if you ask me, not just a narrow chaos testing. So it is definitely something very new. And I'm not sure whether chaos engineering really describes the entire gamut of the activities that goes into this discipline.
I could probably complete that.
Thank you. Katie, you were saying something.
Yes, I was actually wondering if there is a delay on my side. So actually, I wanted to complete the perspective from the cloud native side, because when we're talking about chaos engineering as a practice, I think it is the stage of crossing the chasm. And crossing the chasm is usually when you have that gravitational, like a lot of gravity and a lot of adopters on the other side. But at the same time, this indicates a maturity of the practice. As previously mentioned, chaos engineering has been around for many years. I think the term itself was coined by Netflix in 2011, so it's been around for almost 11 years now. So the practice is there, but it's about how do we adopt it? How do we mature this technology and make it easy for organizations to adopt it all the way through? So I think especially in cloud native, because this is the perspective or this is the ecosystem that I'm consistently in interaction with. When it comes to chaos engineering, this practice, I think, is slowly moving towards this crossing the chasm stage. We have tools that have been in the incubation stage, which again showcases the maturity, showcases a healthy community and contributions at the same time. So, and at the same time, it's easier for the adopters to integrate it. So maybe we've seen the kind of the adopters that were at the bloody edge. They pretty much have nothing to lose. If, for example, chaos engineering experiment goes completely wrong and the radios blast is pretty much half of your production, they can afford that. But we need to ensure that this is a safe practice for enterprises. And I think this is where it's actually moving forward. And this is what we will see more trending in the coming years as well.
Absolutely, Katie. I completely agree with that. And one of the things that I'm actually curious about, given that a lot of our audience is also, in, in academics or are primarily students, from the perspective of a student or a person who's just getting into chaos, how do you actually learn to sort of inject chaos, or how to chaos in in a small environment? Is there like a course or something that's there? Laura, I think you'd be best positioned because you've gone through this journey yourself. So do you want to start, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, gladly. I think I can put in some perspective there. So actually, like I said, I started with chaos engineering and the whole cloud nativeness of Kubernetes and all the third-party projects during a student project. And I had a first look at the principles to understand, first of all, what is chaos engineering, so that it's not just plugging cables and running around in a data center creating chaos, but there's a scheme behind it, a schematic, and there's a method behind it. This is the first thing that's very important to understand, I guess, as a student coming into this great and sometimes scary world of chaos engineering. And after that, I think I would recommend to look into some of the projects, to pick one project that helps you implement chaos engineering into Minikube, into K3D, into all the simple cloud environments that are out there. I mean, there are so many projects that can get you started in a cloud native environment. And then you just start experimenting. And this is basically how you learn to chaos. And what comes last is, I think, you mustn't forget that you're still in your baby steps environment, and you need to look over the fence and look into how chaos engineering is practiced in the real world, let's say it, or in huge enterprises. And from my point of view, such conferences are the best way to do so. So participate in the chaos communities, participate in such events like this here, and look for any experience reports. Look how to create chaos, how to form steady state hypothesis in professional environments and all that. So I think this is the way I would recommend everyone to start.
I couldn't agree more on this one, because one of the biggest things that I have, one of the biggest goals I have professionally and personally, is to make cloud native ubiquitous and pretty much make it approachable to everyone. And this includes all of the principles around and all of the practices, including chaos engineering. So when it comes to chaos engineering, I think Laura mentioned the first great steps, like identify if you have a passion for this particular practice, identify a tool, experiment with it. And if it's something that you really interested in, then Laura mentioned conferences. I think this is one of the greatest way to reach out, because one of the easiest way to learn is to actually talk to other people, to understand what their use case is and how they apply chaos engineering. And when it comes to cloud native as well, we have a plethora of tags, technical advisory groups, and we have working groups as well. And within Cloud Native, we have the Chaos Engineering Working Group specifically, and it's quite active as well. So they have these meetings, which are pretty much going on a weekly basis or every other week or bi-weekly basis. You can join those calls and you can explore how other people advance in their chaos engineering journey. And when it comes to actual training, because I know Divya asks about this one, I didn't find anything official or anything which is pretty much coming from an open source standpoint. However, I think there is a lot of tutorials coming from vendors themselves. You have step-by-step tutorials that you can follow. So you, again, will get those fundamentals of chaos engineering from those sites, and most of them are free as well. So definitely would recommend to check this out. Go to the working groups and actually get involved. You can be part of the next Cloud Native white paper, which involves chaos engineering. But at the same time, make sure to attend events like this. KubeCon is a great event as well. I haven't seen a co-located event only for chaos engineering, but again, if you're passionate about the subject, I would definitely suggest you to create one of those co-located events at KubeCon and participate and invite others, like create the space for others to come and explore the chaos engineering space.
Absolutely. And
I think I can add, sorry, I think the delay is really really bad on my side as well. So I wanted to add some personal note on it. So the support and the warm welcome I received in the communities is just fantastic. And I think there's no reason to be shy and to not start approaching people, start asking your questions, come to them with any concern you have. So they are really interested in getting people started off in chaos engineering and in cloud native as well. So that's really fantastic, I think.
Absolutely. I think the welcome that I got as a new contributor was really great as well. And one thing that I actually wanted to, take away from this conversation and sort of, pose the flip side of this question, if I may, to folks who are actually on the recruiting side of things for chaos engineers, and people who are sort of initiating this conversation within their companies. How do you actually go about hiring folks for chaos engineering? Like, do you all brand it as, we are looking for a chaos engineer? If so, what are the skills that you all look out for? Is there like a certification or something that you all look out for specifically? Because I've never personally seen a job posting for chaos engineers. So it's something that I'm really curious about, and I'm sure our audience is as well. Dushyant, Mani, Mahesh, if any one of you
Yeah,
all can take
yeah,
Yeah.
that.
yeah. It's very interesting question. I think it's a complement to the earlier question. So chaos engineering has got connections with so many other disciplines that we already are aware of. One is the architecture skills, right? It's got connections with SRE. It's got connection with performance testing. It's got connections with every discipline that we have known as software engineers. Now, coming to technical skills, I think it's important for the chaos engineer. You can call it any way you want. As I said, sometimes you use the word runtime architecture evaluation or runtime architecture analyst. First prerequisite technical is architecture, a flair for understanding architecture, flair for being able to abstract details into its generalities and be able to understand architecture at a high level, right? And be able to some extent, go down to a lower level as required. Technically, that's the prerequisite. Then, of course, some amount of tooling knowledge. In fact, performance engineers are a great, I would say, foundation for chaos engineering, because they have the flair for these things, right? They understand tools, they understand how things break. Now, more important for me as a manager is those soft skills, right? Ability to be comfortable with complexity and not having to require directions, process, procedure, SOP kind of direction. Ability to be comfortable with complexity, ability to be able to work with trade-offs and choices, and be able to say, look, if this were to happen, this problem will be there, but then the flip side. So basically what we're trying to say is that when you do failure mode analysis, when you do hypothesis, it's important the ability to do trade-off mentally, create a mental model of how things will behave at runtime is going to be very important. I mentioned complexity. Then it's also important for a person to be very curious and very discovery driven. Hey, I see something here. Can I dig deeper into it? Right? So those are I would say in short, the technical category of skills and the non-technical soft skills that I would look for when I recruit chaos engineers.
Yep, and just to build on to what Mahesh just described, I too feel that having that architecture flair is a real value add, because someone who tends to understand the architecture will also use their soft skills to get a broader business context of how things are shaping up, and that's when they will be able to orchestrate some of these chaos experiments, the thoughtful chaos experiments, because that that ability to understand architecture and that curiosity to find all the failure points, that's really one of the key skills that we are looking. And to be honest, some of the projects that we have done, folks who come with a strong architecture background are the ones who are actually leading these teams. And then the other skill, which I would like to add to what Mahesh described, are the DevOps and automation skills. Because once you are at a position where you have practiced enough chaos using the tools that are available, you need to be able to get onto that continuous improvement and scalability with chaos, and that's where the DevOps and automation skills come into picture, wherein you might need to create, you might need to work with a lot of these APIs with the tools are offering, and sort of inject it directly into your GitOps or CI/CD pipelines. So that is just one more set of skills. So when we are looking out for folks who we want to onboard, we look at that architectural understanding. We look at a basic exposure to the cloud technologies. They need to really understand cloud technologies, and they need to be really good at automation and DevOps skills. So this combination is something that we are looking out for.
Right. And just borrowing on from your point, Dushyant, because you mentioned DevOps and automation. I am just very curious regarding, this automation bit for chaos engineering. Because game days in general, like for those who are, planning a proper game day, um, a lot of it requires planning, approvals, and automation. And I'm just curious, what exactly does it mean to automate chaos engineering? Money, if you can chime in here with your views on what automation means when it comes to chaos engineering, and how would you probably go about with game day management with respect to automation, that would be great.
Yeah, so thanks, Divya. So the essence of chaos engineering is basically to define, the chaos experiments, right? So how you wanted to execute your experiments against your environment. So in my view, when I started implementing chaos into our organization, it is like we started fresh. But I have a set of engineers who has expertise in cloud technologies, as well as Dushyant and Magesh mentioned. So they have a good understanding about DevOps culture, and they know the tool tech stacks. And also, in fact, we hired few interns as well. So wherein we trained them to understand how these chaos engineering tools are going to help, what are the different kind of experiments they can create, and understand the root of it. Basically, when I going to create some experiments, so what is the essence I have to do? What is the requirement? How I can create this experiment and inject chaos into my system, and what is the failure I can see? So at that point of time, there are a number of learnings that every engineers may definitely come across. One of the things I would like to point here is basically number of unknowns. Basically, when you are creating a chaos, you may expect something to fail, but ultimately you will see something else will also get something else will also have a kind of a chaos, wherein you need to see how you can address the problem, and solve that through by giving a solution to it. But in that aspect, if you see, right, so I have created number of workflows, around 200 plus workflows in our system, and we started injecting chaos into our system and see different kind of issues that gave a good learning to our engineers, even the interns. They understood the real use case of it. They tried to implement, and in fact, the tools currently exist in the market, like Kiosk Mesh or Litmus, right? So they are, they have a different kind of approach, the way it was, as I said in the previous point. So it's a very good space. I think I don't see any kind of a limitations as such. It is only limited to experienced person. Even students and freshers, they can start get into this space, as there is no engineers available, specialized engineers available for chaos engineering. I think there are a lot of scope for students and freshers to be part of this one.
I believe Katie has something more to add in this space. So, Katie, do you want to go ahead and chime in with your opinions?
Absolutely. So, so when it comes to automation of chaos engineering, I think there has been a great leap which has been made in the cloud native space. So the first thing, especially if we're thinking about chaos engineering within Kubernetes environments, we can think about these experiments as customer source definitions, which makes it easier for us to use them. They're more flexible and more tunable. But more importantly, we can provide a set of CRDs or a set of chaos experiments and Through template configuration managers such as Helm or Customize, we can interact or collaborate with the developer teams to tune their own variables and scenarios if they want to for chaos engineering. And the other thing when it comes to automation, well, I have to name GitOps here. I think it's been a great buzzword that has been around for almost like 2 or 3 years now. But another thing that we need to consider, if we have chaos experiments as CRDs, that means that we can integrate them as part of our CI/CD pipeline. And when it comes to GitOps, we can truly automate that. We can define the state of our experiments within a Git repository. And if we change anything within our application, then we can kick those experiments straight away, and we can see if there's any changes as part of any reactions based on our changes. So definitely I would mention those two. And another thing that facilitates the game state to happen with much more confidence is the observability tooling. Again, within the cloud native space, if you use any chaos tool within that space, you can make the best use of the observability tools that are already integrated within the systems. You just need to make sure to pull the actual metrics that correspond to describe your chaos engineering, and you have that transparency and visibility layer even further down. So I think, again, like as I mentioned before, there has been a lot of changes within this space. There has been a lot of tooling that matured, but at the same time, when integrating chaos engineering within the cloud native space is definitely easier and more flexible if we think about them as building blocks rather than just a one-off object. Is like building blocks. You can further iterate on those, further simplify those, and make them more flexible for the development teams.
Yeah, just one point on automation is it's important for us to understand, all of us to understand that chaos engineering objectives, which is the continuous discovery and improvement of resiliency, reliability, even performance and security, cannot be just done by tools. Tools are going to automate certain manual activities. Tools are going to give you a dashboard, but interpreting the dashboard and correlating and connecting things and intelligently predicting or taking a call on, is this behavior, certain behaviors are very clear. They are kind of faulty behavior. Certain behavior needs a bit of expertise analysis. And then I think before we start chaos experiment, the actual thoughtful design of experiments based on the architecture, based on failure mode analysis, is to be done by the human expert. So the humans will never go out of fashion, no matter how many tools we have in chaos engineering. It's actually a very SME-driven exercise powered by tool. That's my point.
Absolutely. I don't think we can take away the human element from chaos engineering anytime soon, because at the end of the day, like Mahesh said, it's a very SME driven exercise, and it's absolutely necessary for the subject matter experts to be a part of the entire end to end process. But that being said, I think it's time that we look at the audience questions. So the very first question is up on the screen, which has received the most upvotes. Is there a way to softly introduce chaos engineering in big enterprises where there are multiple not cloud confident dev teams? Asked by Alejandro Affinito. I hope I got your name right. So, anyone wants to take this question, please? Dishant, Manivan, and Katie.
Yeah, I can go first, maybe. So so from a soft introduction of chaos engineering, I think one of the ways to get started is to really find some of your applications, or maybe do a prioritization of your applications which are like mission critical. And once you have found something that you would like to pick it up as the first application, that's where you sort of come up with a stage environment which is not really which is almost like a production replica, but that's where you need to sort of make it your playground and start doing some of these experiments which can help you uh, get some quick wins. And it could be the quick wins could be as simple as testing things like your failovers not working, right? Testing things like the master slave configuration, whether the once a failure is injected onto a particular infrastructure component where there is a failover possible, whether after the failover is it recovering to its original state or not, and subsequently you can also gain visibility into some of these metrics which probably you have not had before. So that is one way you can get started, and then it could also help build a lot of confidence once you see those results.
I could add to that as well. So when it comes to building the confidence in using chaos engineering, I would say start looking internally if you are in a mature state in your production and if you are ready to introduce failure in your production. And another thing is look at the tools that you're using, because you don't need necessarily a new tool to start to actually experiment with chaos engineering. And what I mean by that, if, for example, if you use Istio, if you use a service mesh, Istio has this capability for virtual services to introduce failure on purpose. So for example, you can introduce timeout for a percentage of the request, or you can abort some of the, not serve some of the requests as well. And you actually see how your service behaves. So if you use Istio, for example, that can be a great first step for you to experiment with chaos engineering. But when it comes to introducing new practices, when it comes to introducing new tools, I think the best advice is start small. As previously mentioned, identify a service that is not critical to your production. For example, if it goes down, it's not going to cause massive revenue impact. So start small, test it out, build that confidence, and build it step by step, and actually expand it from one team to the other to the services which are larger and larger further. So my advice would be always start small and do your due diligence, do your POCs, choose the right tool for your use case. That's another thing that I would recommend.
Yeah, and also quick one, that it is not always required that chaos engineering should be in production. It could be done during pre-production on a continuous basis to uncover defects, and you could do that at a small component level and then expand to a larger enterprise level.
So I guess the consensus here is it's all about the baby steps. Start small and then, probably build upon that expertise. And yeah, there obviously is a way to softly introduce it, but it's all literally about the baby steps that you take. So I guess we can take the next audience question, which is what are the most important metrics to capture from the target system during a chaos test for future analysis? Asked by Adam. Anyone want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, so because no one, I'll go first. So there are two levels of metrics we could do, we could capture. One is the objective, the business objectives. In my opinion, chaos engineering should improve three major business objectives. Business performance, which includes user experience, and business transaction performance, which could include throughput, number of transactions handled, and all that, right? Second is availability, reliability, and resilience, they're all related in some sense. And third is a security, right? So at a higher level, it is important for us to understand how the behavior that we have mined is going to impact these three top level metrics and start to build an initial forecast of all these parameters and what business is giving us. At a next level, typically we would tend to use the red method or the use method to capture certain metrics. and understand how at a component level and the transaction level, both component level and transaction level, right? I think the utilization, saturation, and error looks at component level, and the RED, which is the rate, error, and duration, looks at the transaction level. So if you could layer our metrics at a higher business level and next level of leading metrics, it will be easy for us to correlate these two and be able to derive the best benefit from chaos engineering.
All right. Thank you for that, Mahesh. I think we can move on to our next question, which will be the last one. The rest of the stuff will be answered on Slack, unfortunately, due to time constraints. So the next question is, what is the best approach to adopt chaos engineering in legacy or SOA applications? Asked by Daniel Bella. Um, Laura, do you want to take a stab at this?
So I've done my dual study program at such a company who has many legacy systems, and is slowly starting with cloudification and with microservices and Kubernetes, and they're slowly transforming. And I think, at least what I observe, is that the parts that are already transformed into microservices architectures, they still communicate with the outside world. So in order to start doing chaos engineering in such an environment, I would suggest to even in a monolith, you can pick out some functions or some external endpoints that you can mess with. So I would start with defining a hypothesis about how the system should behave when some external partners, for example, external partner systems, external communication systems crash. And I think when you're in such a old environment or such a monolithic environment, it doesn't keep you, or it should keep you, from starting off with chaos engineering, from my point of view. So you can still identify the weak points in the architecture, even if it's a monolith. So it's not like one single function, but it also consists of multiple parts as well. So you can, if you have a tiered application or a controller application, you can still test the single parts of it.
Absolutely, I believe that's also a very valid point, that you don't need to be cloud native in order to
Yes.
start off doing your chaos experiments. You can pick and choose. And with that, I think we have time for one more question. Can we have that on the screen, please? Right. Is there a use case to combine chaos with security, like trying to simulate a hack or DDoS attacks, etc.? Asked by Chandra. Um, Manivannan, do you want to take this, please?
Yeah, at least in my case, I haven't explored much towards security. So it's more of networking layer, and also on the storage and CPU and other levels we exposed it. I think I'd pass on this to someone who has exposed to security layer.
I think it makes a lot of sense to combine. As I said earlier, I've been saying that chaos engineering today, as it has evolved over the last 10 years, is primarily improving the architecture performance, the non-functional performance, as people used to call it before, which is, as I said, business performance, resilience and reliability, and security. So in my opinion, it is very important to do it. If the question is that, is it possible? Of course, it is possible to combine. Often security vulnerability is quite related to sometimes availability of certain components, right? So to me, it is important to have a three-dimensional view of the objective, which is performance, business performance, availability, and security, and be able to combine this in the chaos experiments. Yes, it's very important. It's got to be done,
Yeah,
including DDoS.
Yeah, one of the thing that that when we explored around security aspects, we started identifying a lot of vulnerabilities. We reported various CVs around the infra level while creating the chaos. But as far as I know, I think there are no workflows as state workflows to create chaos against security. Is what my understanding. There is no state definition to create a chaos on the security side, but on the other side, I think I got exposed to it.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so one last thing, if we take the question quite literally, so the DDoS attacks, there is already a wide variety of networking experiments. I think that can really not only chop off the network, so yeah, don't let any packets in, but you can also reverse this and bombard your service with packets. That's also possible with networking chaos experiments today. So I think, what is chaos engineering in security? I think security is also consists of services that you offer for applications. Like you offer you offer a login page, or you offer a secure functionality for encryption or something like that. And these are also parts of an application that can be attacked, and that parts of services that can be attacked, and that can be not not made available for other parts of the applications. So I think there are some very interesting articles online. I've read about that a bit, but you're right, this is not the prime part of chaos engineering today. That's true.
Right. And I believe that's our time for today. Unfortunately, although I'd love for this discussion to go on, for all the rest of the questions that have been posted, we will be answering them on our Slack channel. So please do not forget to join in there and interact with the speakers. But for now, thank you everyone for joining in, and hope you have a great rest of the event and a great rest of the day wherever you are tuning in from. Thank you once again.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for moderating
Thank
it
you
so
so
well,
much.
Divya.
You'll have been a
Yes,
brilliant
great job.
panel.